And the matter is in the hands of the Intelligence Committee under leadership of Adam Schiff, from whom we're very, very proud, and our members of the committee. I know you had Sean Patrick Maloney on earlier. We're very proud of him. And so they will take the time that they need. And we won't have the calendar be the arbiter, but we do, it doesn't have to drag on. And again, we're in court and on many of these cases, whether it's the president's taxes, his bank accounts, his accounting, emoluments, a whole slew of other things. I think this probably will be done before the courts. Who knows the timing of the courts? But again, it's no use to just say by such and such a date. But looking at the, shall we say, the material that the administration is giving us, they are actually speeding up the process.
The decision itself to move forward, we had Kellyanne Conway, who I guess is still at the White House, at the Atlantic Festival yesterday, saying Nancy Pelosi did the worst thing a woman in power can ever do, which is change her mind in a matter of hours on something so significant, acceding to the angry mob, insisting that she move toward impeachment.
Why would I have to comment on something she said? But the fact
that is the correct answer, by the way.
I didn't even know she was still there.
That is the correct answer, yes.
No, but let me just say this. It wasn't a question of changing of mind. People say that to me, when did you change your mind? It doesn't change my mind. The facts change the situation, and they cannot be ignored, no matter how sexist she wants to be. The fact is that the revelation of the president's unconstitutional behavior in his own political interest was so changed the mind of the public. You see the polls
like they're
changing.
Trying to make this about you.
Yeah,
and
well,
what you're trying to say is...
I welcome it. I'm ready. I said all along, I said, I think this is an important statement. We have to weigh the equities when we're talking about a statement of impeachment. We weigh the equities. I never thought he was worth it to have something so divisive to the country. But really, the step that the cavalier attitude, or the irresponsible, whatever, illegal practice. But the fact is that we're talking about our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, checks and balances. This is a very important moment for us because I don't trust what could happen in the courts of his appointees as to whether they will rule and say that the Congress of the United States does have the right of oversight in the Constitution, oversight of the executive branch. The president says, Article 2 says, I can do whatever I want. No, it doesn't. You're not a monarch. It's a Republican, if we can keep it. A republic, if we can keep it.
A republic, if we can keep it. It's so interesting. Over the past 20, 30 years, we've heard people every couple of years go, this is the year of the woman in Washington. This is the year. And I'm sitting there going, okay, great, I get it. Every 3 or 4 years, when a couple of women are elected, we're going to have this narrative. Earlier this week, we saw one woman elected in 2018 after another woman elected in 2018 who had served in the military, or who was a prosecutor, or who had served in the intel community, going on and dispassionately explaining, these freshman Democrats, dispassionately explaining why, even though Donald Trump had won their district, and this was not the politically smart move to make, it was the right move to make. And I remember going to bed that night going, my God, this is not only the year of the woman, but we will look back on this like we look back on, for instance, the Watergate class of '74. These women are going to change American politics forever, and there will be a president or two or three out of these women, and daughters like mine will see. We are seeing this week history unfold before our eyes.
It's beautiful, and we're so very, very proud of them because they are honoring their oath of office, and their national security background informs them as to how dangerous this is. I had said early on, if and when we have to do this, we will be ready. And we are ready because of the integrity of our members, because of the leadership of our committee chairs, and now in terms of the Intelligence Committee, because of the preparation that we have made. And we'll continue to make that during the district work periods. People go home, listen to their constituents,
If you could speak to those who maybe are still struggling with why this was so wrong, and we're talking about the focus of shaking down the leader of Ukraine to get information on a political opponent, and by the way, having hundreds of millions of dollars in aid held up. Could you explain to those as to why this is wrong, but also extremely dangerous?
Let me just say that I fully appreciate the need for a president of the United States to have conversations with leaders of other countries, and that some of that may want to be held close to the vest as part of his job. But I don't think it's part of the president's job to shake down leaders of other countries using taxpayer dollars to have them do something that is in his political benefit. It is wrong for any foreign government to interfere in our elections. And here you have the President of the United States asking for that. So it is, again, now we're engaged in a cover-up of that, but the cover-up of the cover-up, two wrongs do not make a right. And the President's going to have to answer that, and they know how wrong it is. So it's wrong for, as we saw with Russian interference. And by the way, I think Russia has a hand in this, by the way. But we saw with the Russian disruption of our election last time, their interference, 100% confidence of the intelligence community, high confidence of the intelligence community that the Russians disrupted our election. That was wrong. The integrity of our elections is central to our democracy. So what the president did in inviting outside intervention into our election is, it goes beyond the pale. So that, and then to use what was in a bipartisan way passed by Congress to have this assistance to go to Ukraine, right, is wrong. So actually we have a double whammy, because he's again violating the Constitution by overriding an act of Congress, which is the power of the purse of Congress.
Can we add that Republicans criticized Barack Obama for years for not providing that sort of aid to Ukraine, and now a Democratic House did exactly that, and it was a Republican president who delayed it.
So in terms of your question, it's wrong because it violates the integrity of our elections. It's wrong because we have taken oaths to protect and defend, and he is undermining our national security by withholding funds that Congress in a bipartisan way had passed in our national security interest.
So I read a story earlier this week in Financial Times that struck me personally, because I have a son who has type 1 diabetes. It's about Americans that have to actually go to Canada to get insulin for themselves or for their children. There was one mother, my God, it broke my heart. She had a son off in college. She actually chose not to pay her electric bill 1 month so she could afford, because her son was actually rationing his insulin and very bad things were happening. By the way, it was discovered, insulin, this was I think it was in Toronto. The guy that discovered it gave up the patent for like $1. Why is it that drug companies in America are still able to stick it to consumers the way that they are? And I understand, I want there to be a cure for diabetes, so I want them to be able to make enough money to continue that research. But this is excessive. What can you do? What can Congress do behind us that will force the president to sign a bill to make prescription medication available for diabetics and others whose lives depend on it?
Thank you. I'm so sorry about your personal situation, but fortunately you can afford medicine. And that shouldn't be the way it is. Let me say, one of the answers is H.R. 3, our legislation that has been developed by our committees of jurisdiction, Ways and Means, especially